Great League is almost back, and today we're gonna dive together with my best teams video into that meta. So this is gonna be the final week for this season, and perhaps this is gonna be the time to push for that final milestone. It doesn't have to be legend or leaderboard, some people still haven't reached ace, veteran, expert, so whatever your goal might be, these teams are here to help you for Open Great League. So now without any further ado, cue the intro. Starting off with the first team showcase, and this is a similar team that was used to be run with something like a Swampert in place of Whiskas. So with this team composition we're having Whiskas up in front, followed up by that Skeletorch and of course Drapion. This team is not gonna have a lot of weaknesses in the meta besides a core breaker that I have over here, and that's mainly because we are using 3 Pokemon pretty good in general throughout the entire meta of Open Great League. Scald this season was amazing and pretty refreshing to see for a lot of Pokemon, but Whiskas is one of those that are gonna be the most benefited from. So yeah, this Pokemon is looking pretty good with Mudshot, with Mud Bomb, and of course Scald up in front, able to apply so much pressure with the spam moves, able to switch out effectively, and of course sometimes it can even tank the moves because of how bulky it is. And this bulk is definitely gonna be needed on this team because you still have Skarmory, which is pretty good defensively due to its typing and only of that, while at the back we also have Drapion, which you should use on Shadow. The main reason you need Shadow Drapion is because you can two-shot down some pretty good meta-relevant Pokemon, something like a Lantern, something like a Skarmory, and stuff like that. So yeah, double crunch is gonna be your main way to go most of the times when you're using Shadow Drapion on the Switch, and also most of the time you're gonna use this Pokemon as a punching bag. Aqua Tail has to be your second move, while Sludge Bomb is gonna help you more with Poliwrath. Other than Poliwrath, with your Drapion you're gonna find no other weakness at all in the meta because of how good in general it can be. Skarmory now as a closer, a pretty good Pokemon this season as well, gonna be benefited from those Steel Wing buffs, and of course with Brave Bird you have nothing to worry about. Even against Steel types now, something like a Stunfisk or a Red Steel, Skarmory feels much better with Steel Wing, so you can always count on it with that shield advantage for the end game. Moving on, and we're having a team with a Bastiodon up in front, while a double weak to Fairy typing will be at the back with Sableye and Poliwrath. You have already figured out how to play this team. You need to aggressively switch in there with your Sableye, try to draw out that Fairy type so that your Poliwrath will be weakness free at the very end, because Poliwrath, if you didn't know already, with counter and Ice Wind now has a chance to finish off even the most relevant flyers, something like a Skarmory, something like a Mandibuzz for example, so you can always count on that Pokemon for the end game. Over here I have a Shadow version of Poliwrath, but feel free to use the regular one as well. I figured out that this Pokemon definitely appreciates that extra bulk, and especially when it can apply the debuffs on the opponent, because after one debuff the next super effective move can easily be taken if you are a non-Shadow, while when you have the Shadow sometimes it feels like the debuff is not enough to tank the next super effective move. So that's why I recommend going for the regular Poliwrath over the Shadow. But still, if you have the Shadow, go for it. Do not build a new one if you do not have one already at your disposal. Bastiodon up in front is gonna be the ultimate wall face for the flyers, but at the same time it is gonna struggle a lot against the ground types and those fighters. So it is kind of a risky lead, but still pretty rewarding with this exact backline. Sableye now is gonna be pretty good on drawing out that Fairy type, but at the same time can provide a lot of pressure to that counter of its own because of Return being added to its moveset. Absolutely insane damage if the opponent is not careful. So Azumarill here is gonna be the main threat of this team, perhaps Tapu Fini as well, because of how good those water types can be on that Bastiodon, especially the Hydro Pump, and of course the Fairy typing will be kinda problematic at the back, but it's not something that you cannot overcome with just a little bit of synergy. Next up, we have a pretty bulky team. We're gonna use a Cresselia up in front, while at the back as a safe switch, our pivot is going to be Mandibuzz alongside the closer of the Metal Trash Can, as known as Registeel. This team is pretty bulky, and sometimes even super effective moves will not feel like they're super effective. They're gonna feel like neutral damage at worst, so we're looking at a pretty strong team defensively, and of course with some heavy nukes in the process. You got moves like Grass Knot, Moonblast, Future Sight, Flash Cannon, Focus Blast, Zap Cannon. Feel free to use whatever you want, but for Registeel I definitely recommend going for Zap Cannon, which is a legacy, and of course Focus Blast. For Cresselia, feel free to use any of those three moves that I mentioned for it: Moonblast, Grass Knot, Future Sight. Every single combination of these three moves combined in two, is gonna be pretty useful to you. Future Sight is gonna help you against those fire types, while you have the extra coverage with that Moonblast for, I don't know, a dark type, or just go with the Grass Knot and you are still gonna get some extra coverage for those mad boys. Whatever the situation might be, Cresselia is gonna be there for you, and of course you can always count for it with that Future Sight, even against this core breaker like we have over here, that Skeledirge for example. So Skeledirge is a core breaker because of those Shadow Balls able to do so much damage on your Psychic type up in front, has the fire moves for that Registeel matchup, and of course that Disarming Voice can always be kind of a troublemaker for your flying dark type Pokemon, but still it is nothing that you cannot overcome, since you have a lot of synergy here, a lot of nukes coming along its way, and obviously the Dark Pulse is gonna be super effective from your Mandibuzz. So we're looking at a very strong team. I really think that you should dig into it, and of course for your Mandibuzz, before we hop into the final team showcase, I want to share with you that I have found a lot of success using it with Dark Pulse over Foul Play, because you already have a very fast charge attack, which is gonna be RLAs, able to charge it super fast with those Snarls, and yes, you need Snarl over that Air Slash. We're heading now into the final team showcase with a Gligar up in front, followed up by Lickitung and Stunfisk, pretty much like the previous team that we needed to bait out with our Sableye, that Fairy type. Remember this one about a couple of minutes ago? Right here as well we need to do exactly the same thing, but this time for that fighting draw out, because what you need to do with this exact line in order to succeed in Go Battle League is to use it effectively by switching aggressively into your Lickitung. And even though I have a very bad lead here against a nice type, I still gonna go for that Lickitung to draw out the fighter, and even if they do not have the fighter like they do over here as well with a Tentacle, we're still gonna have the upper hand eventually, because Stunfisk will have most likely nothing else to worry about other than the core breaker of this team. You might see here Swampert, but of course it is a representative for all of those mad boys that exist in the meta. Swampert, Quagsire, Whiskas, whatever you want to call it, even Marstomp. Yeah, this team is gonna struggle against those, because this is an ABB team style that you want to use aggressively to draw out that fighter with your Lickitung, but at the same time it is an ABA team style with a ground type up in front and a ground type at the back. This is looking pretty strong overall, only because of the fact that you can take quick care of those fighters with your Gligar, have the upper hand with that Lickitung being super general on the entire meta of Open Great League, and of course eventually you're gonna have nothing to worry about with your Stunfisk at the very end. Most people tend to have something like a Lantern or a Bastiodon for their end game, even something like a Shadow Granbull. I have seen that. So Galarian Stunfisk is gonna help you on that matter, and it is gonna be a Pokemon that not a lot of people are gonna be expecting, so you can always count on that Earthquake, even on the worst scenario up against a fighter for example, to do the lethal damage that you need. What I like about this team is the synergy that it provides to the entire meta, and of course you can always count on it if you want to push for that final milestone this final week of this season. That is gonna be all for today, trainers. Thank you for watching and sticking around till the end. Of course over here I have two videos for you to check out, but before you go, just be sure that you have left that big like, subscribe to the channel, and of course I will see you up later into the next one.